Good evening, my wonderful non-existent studio audience. Yay! As you can see, it's late. I'm tired. I got some good news today. But let's talk about good news for kill count. So we started talking about soldier last time, and I thought it could be fun to do a rundown of each character type, just one a day. Because that'll get us through to the end of the week as part of the front end of my devlog, just to kind of give me something to start talking about. So I've got set up here just a really simple, very small two-player map of kill count. As you can see, it's barely even a foot by a foot. This would foot by a foot for the folks that know. But this is perfectly adequate for demonstrating just what I want to show today, which today we're going to talk about the Omenseer. So everybody open up your textbooks to character cards in kill count 3.75, and let's look at the Omenseer. The Omenseer has HP 3, defense 4, a 2-cost card ability, which is divination. As an action, roll 2d6, and you may choose the highest. You may choose either result. You may use the chosen roll to replace any other roll you make until the start of your next turn. I've rolled. I got a 1 and a 6. I'm going to retain the 6. Then our 4-cost is Fated Response. On another player's turn, you may perform one action. Reduce your next turn starting action points by 2. It's their turn. We spend 4 points. We shoot them. We use the 6 that we retained. Almost always guaranteed hit in that combo. Of course, then on our turn, we have 2 AP instead of 3, and everyone else at the table is going to have 3. So it's kind of that risk reward in terms of resource management. When do you want to use it? But our quest criteria is choose a divination result of 1 and 6. So this is great. We're already halfway there based on just what we rolled. And when we choose a result of 1 and 6 and complete our criteria, our quest passive is when you use divination, you may use the selected roll for any roll until the start of your next turn. And you also gain 1 HP when using the chosen result. So if someone really wants to hit you, but you rolled a 1 and you can kind of retain that 1, this can be a great way to try and boost your defense in the mid game. And the whole idea here is that maybe you don't need to have a defense build because you can just use the 2 points on your turn and then use that lower end die to try and cancel an attack. So let's talk about the Omenseer in play. On the Omenseer's turn, they can start with 3 AP. And they could immediately attack if they wanted to through the cover, or they could use 2 of their power, roll the 2. We got a 3 and a 4. And they're going to retain the 4. Then that is as an action. So now they have 2 left. They got 2 AP left. Then they can still move, So if we can get here, well, we could go that way, but instead we're just gonna scooch here. There's nothing. I'm not trying to really play in this. I'm just trying to show an example. And then we can attack. And as attacking, well, if they have just a base defense, let's say they're a gearhead and they have a base defense of 3, we could just use the 4 and that gives us 2 hits. We do 2 damage because it exceeds their defense. If they were a ninja and had a defense of 4, we could use the 4 and still deal 1 damage. The idea being that you're getting a consistent level of damage for 2 power. However, that's if you're spending it on that. You might also want to use it if you got, example, if you're moving into, let's say this is burning territory here. This is a burning terrain field. And let's say we rolled a 6. We could get that 6, retain it, and then move through. And we take the 2, but then we get the +2 attack, +2 wound just by using that. So it's helpful because you have consistency. So I'm really, really interested to see what players are going to consistently use it for. If it's always going to be a high roll for an attack, then maybe I need to review divination just to make sure that it's not, what's the word I'm looking for, broken? But I think as it is now, it's going to be a choice between, do you save that low roll once you get your quest passive unlocked to try and stop someone from hitting you, or do you want to save that high roll to consistently be getting the hit? Again, because it's roll the dice, you know, I got a 6 and I got a 3. There's a chance you kind of get middle tier, but, you know, in this case, I got a 1 and a 5. But it's really, you know, roll the dice. So a little bit of chance, a little bit of fate, a little bit of worked into that. You'll notice that I'm using a Arizona T Eldari painted up for that. Let me see if I can actually put that in your camera zone for you. If it'll, there you go. And I'm doing that mostly just because I know Dustin likes space elves. And if Dustin's seeing this, shout out to you. Shout out to Waystone. Thanks for giving me a place to playtest this. So that is the Omenseer, just as a character. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the rest of the show, right? And we'll go ahead and, oh, no, my Xenos faction, for the Emperor, and put them over there. They can play nice, and we can talk kill count. So, the thing with kill count that I'm still kind of playing around with is the idea of what does it mean to have a complete base product for a game I fully expect to keep working on. Kill count, definitely not a live service video game, but something that I kind of pull from live service as a model is the idea of being able to provide DLC or patches or updates to the balance of the game or just things like that. You know, something that I really like in competitive TCGs is the idea of having an evolving overall meta and having to reassess on a regular basis to make sure that things stay more or less balanced. You're going to see certain builds and archetypes come out. But with kill count, I don't know how active I want to do that or how active of a community this game is going to have. So the question I want to ask myself is it okay if it needs to be fixed after being released? Or do I want to try and get a balanced, fun, exciting product or an ecosystem for this game that when it is released feels balanced and fun and exciting and fair and doesn't feel like it's requiring a meta patch every month or 3 months or whenever. So that's something I have on my mind when I'm making this game is I want to make sure, I think the direction I want to fall is that the first 6 characters are solid. They're great. They all work together cohesively if they're all played at the same time. So like your Omenseer is going to have the Fate dice going on, that Divination, then the Fated response, and then your Gearhead is going to be locking down equipment depots and then calling in other equipment cards to, you know, give themselves a boost. And then the Ninja is going to be dodging. So if Omenseer was attacking the Ninja and used their 2-point divination and they rolled a high number and they kept that high number, the Ninja could use their 2-point decoy dodge ability to reduce the damage from that down to 1 damage and then, you know, get to shift if they have their Shadow Step unlocked and get to move 3 inches and get out of the way. So I want and then the Soldier being able to use cover or things like that or use their set them up ability to work with that. And then also like the Omenseer, the divination option is great if you're up against a soldier with an unlocked quest ability that has all 4 attacks coming at you for 2 attack actions. Like that's great to be able to be like, all right, here's one of those is an automatic miss. Now roll your other 3. I can see that being some good synergy within the, I hate that word, good gameplay linking between them in the overall, like the original 6 that come out. But then the next 3, I'm wondering if I want to do it in batches of 6, batches of 3, what feels best? Because if it's up for 6 players, but if you're maybe having 4 players on average on a table, then I wonder if maybe releasing in 4 is even better. As you can see, these devlogs are meant to be a bit of a ramble, so they are as much for me as they are for you to go back and see where things were at a given state. So, with that said, I think, based on the fact that I've had a very long day, I'm not going to focus too much more on characters. Let's talk about terrain itself. Yeah, let's talk about terrain. Something that I'm looking at is how to codify what type of terrain is what, if at all. And to maybe say that in a way that makes more sense, I'm looking to find a way to codify terrain effects attached to terrain pieces. At the moment, they're attached to terrain effect markers. Those markers, we're going to use this as an example. The marker goes down, and everywhere within 3 inches radius from the center of that marker is affected. So in this case, our red buddy is not affected because they're outside it, and our green buddy is absolutely affected because they're inside it. It can also be partial, right? So if the red was here, it's partially within, so that is affecting. As long as you have moved in at least a little bit, that terrain is affecting you. But I'm wondering if it should be for each terrain piece that you set down, you can say that piece is this thing. And then it, has a range of 3 inches from that thing. The difficulty is that might work with scatter, right? Like you want to use junk piles or barrels or maybe even these like ramshackle walls. You can be like, all right, this ramshackle wall is electrified, right? It's got those electrical things. We're going to say it's charged. And when you move within 3 inches of this, it's going to be like an electrical field and you get shocked if you move in, right? But then the question is, all right, well then what happens for, bigger pieces of terrain like this pump house, like this oil pump from the Arcteria set. Everything here is from the Games Workshop Kill Team Arcteria set, just as an example. Should this get 1 or 2? Should it be tall, blocks visibility, or and I think that's something that I'm wondering if that's even important for kill count. Because, for example, in Kill Team, this piece of plastic has very specific rules, and honestly, they're too complicated for me to remember. I'm just going to let someone else tell me what they are in the comments. But this one also has its own rules. And then depending on how far away from you are, and the target is to it, then that also has rules about what it does. So I'm also like, if you're up on this, there's a difference between being up here and down here in Kill Team. And Kill Team is a very complicated game that seems really cool, and I kind of like it. But that's not what I want kill count to be. I don't want kill count to be a Kill Team copycat, because that is a skirmish game, and this is a deathmatch miniatures game with individual hero characters pitted against each other in fierce arcade combat, like Quake. That's more what I want to go back to. And so like Quake, what I remember from playing games like Quake is that there's usually like a zone that you go into, and that zone has an effect, and if you slip into that zone, you get that effect. Or you get hit with the weapon with that effect, you get it. But it's quick, it's simple, it's understandable, it's usually color-coded or symbol-coded. So I feel like maybe leaving it with terrain markers is simplest, because you can always take a terrain marker and set it on the piece and say, it's radiated now. I don't see why that needs to be any more complicated, but let me know if you prefer having more complex rules. Again, the other thing I'm thinking of doing is trying to get everything down to a basic rules of 1 page, maybe front and back. I mean, it'd be great if I get it just a 1 page, right? Like 1 8.5 by 11 print sheet, back of the box. We're done for the basic rules. Excuse me. And then a booklet inside the box, or a PDF called the sweaty section. Like it's very specific about how to do things, but still written in terms that are digestible and clear, because I want the rules themselves to be understandable to people who don't play war games or skirmish games, and are maybe more used to things like Ticket to Ride. So I've got a long ways to go in making that a more accessible, palatable rule set. But that's the goal. And in that terrain section, I want to find a way to very crisply, in a very crisp fashion, explain what is what and how it works. Speaking of what is what and how it works, burning terrain, staying on the terrain theme, burning terrain, I'm still not happy with. I'm enjoying radiation. I've tried it a little bit, and seeing I roll a d6, and for d3 rounds, that is how long I'm irradiated. And then anytime I roll a 1, I'm dead. I'm dead. That just happened right there. That was great. That's cool. I like that. It plays well, and then getting that extra power anytime I would gain a power. So if I play aggression, if I dust aggression, instead of getting 2 power, I get 3. But if I roll that 1, I die. So that feels good. Also, something I didn't mention in the devlog about radiation is you're also still irradiating others, but I shrank the range to be a radius of 3 inches from the center of your base, because that just plays a little better. That's going to get the close range fighters a little more than the long range fighters. And I think that makes sense. I think it feels good, because then you're all in it together, versus if you're far away, you're not like, if the tactic that you're playing as a character is to stay away from other characters and try and snipe them, it doesn't feel good if the close combat character can get within 6 inches of you and just immediately fill you with so much radiation that you just drop dead. That doesn't feel fair or honestly fun. So shrink it to 3 inches, but you can still radiate others. The question, though, is it a separate die roll, or are they radiated for the number of rounds that you're currently radiated? Kind of like if you're radiated for 3, then you drop down to 2, and then you irradiate someone, then they start at 2, you know? And there's no extra roll involved. That's the question. Because again, I want to make it really simple. Plus, if there's no extra roll involved, it might be really interesting if you're coming after an Omenseer to know that if you get yourself irradiated, you can force it on them and they can't use divinate. Okay, so that's something to think about. Anyways, bit of a ramble. I think that's going to be all for rules tonight, because I'm definitely all over the place. But hey, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I have a question for you if, you're actually watching this. The question is, what character are you most excited to play the next time you get a chance? Is it the ninja, the Omenseer, the soldier, the gearhead, the pyro, or the berserker? Those 6. I'm very excited to know what you think. And also, PVPVE mode? Should there be mobs that you get to fight? Let me know what you think. Bye.